For 5 years, Daniel Ward has scrubbed fingerprints off glass walls and emptied trash cans in the top-floor corner office, a place that smells like power and expensive perfume. By 11 p.m., the skyscraper is quiet, but the CEO's light is always the last to go out. Everyone in this building whispers her name with a mix of fear and respect. Ava Kensington, the woman who turned a failing tech firm into a billion-dollar empire. To her, Daniel is invisible. The single dad in a faded polo, pushing a mop cart while he worries about his daughter's asthma meds and overdue rent. Tonight should have been like any other shift. But when a framed photo slips off Ava's desk and lands at his feet, Daniel picks it up and freezes. 2 kids sit on a rusted playground swing, arms linked, wearing the same thrift store hoodies he remembers all too well. One of them is him. The other is the girl he promised never to leave behind. Before we start, tell us in the comments, where are you watching from? Daniel's grip on the silver frame tightened until his fingers hurt. The top floor was still, air vents hummed and rain tapped the glass. In the photo, 2 kids sat on a rusted playground swing. The boy had a buzz cut and a forced half smile. The girl's chin was lifted, eyes stubborn, a fading bruise along her jaw. He was one of them. The crooked fence, the leaning oak tree, the charity hoodies. They were all from the state group home he'd tried to forget. "Rosie," he whispered. The elevator dinged. Daniel flinched and hurried to set the frame back on Ava Kensington's immaculate desk, angling it exactly as it had been. He'd grabbed his cloth when the sharp rhythm of heels cut through the quiet. The glass door swung open. Ava strode in, trench coat unbuttoned over a navy dress, phone pressed to her ear. "If legal has a problem, they can email me," she said. "The acquisition closes Friday." Daniel slid toward the bookshelf, shoulders hunched. He knew the rules up here. Don't speak to the CEO unless spoken to. Don't linger. Don't touch anything personal. Ava ended the call, tossed her bag onto the chair, and looked up. "You're still on this floor?" she asked. "I thought maintenance was gone by 10. "Yes, ma'am, just finishing," Daniel said, keeping his eyes on the rug. Her gaze flicked to the desk. The frame was off by a fraction. "Next time, leave my personal things where they are," she said, straightening it. "It slipped. I'm sorry," he replied. "Then be more careful." She was already focused on her screen. Daniel pushed his card out, the squeak of the wheels echoing too loud in his ears. In the elevator, his reflection stared back. Early 30s, dark hair threaded with gray, blue jumpsuit. He thought of the boy in the photo and the social worker who had walked Rosie into a car he couldn't follow. He stepped out into drizzle. City lights smeared across a wet asphalt as he walked home. By the time he opened his apartment door, it was after midnight. "Dad?" a small voice called. Mia sat curled on the couch, inhaler on the table. "Hey, Bug. We talked about staying up," he said gently. My chest felt tight. "I used it like Dr. Patel said." He sat beside her, hand against her back. "Sounds better now," he said. "Proud of you." She brightened. "Miss Carter said I read the fastest today." "That's because you're brilliant." He carried her to the bedroom they shared, tucking her under the faded unicorn comforter. "I'll make things better," he whispered. Once, he'd said the same words to another girl in another cramped room. "Don't worry, Rosie. When we're grown, I'll find you." He never had. Life became shifts, bills, and hospital visits. The promise faded, until tonight, when he'd seen her face on the desk of the woman who could fire him with one email. Why would Ava Kensington, a billionaire tech CEO, keep a photo from a state group home? By the time his next shift started, the question had hardened into a decision. He needed to see that photo again. At 10:45 p.m., Daniel swiped his badge onto the executive floor. The hallway outside Ava's office was dark, exit signs glowing. His heart pounded as he eased open the glass door. The skyline glittered beyond the windows. He didn't turn on the overhead lights. He crossed to the desk and picked up the frame. "That's you, isn't it, Rosie?" he whispered. A briefcase sat beside the chair, flap half open. Papers spilled out. The top page bore a crest that he hadn't seen since he was 14. Meadoridge Children's Center. His stomach dropped. He reached for the folder. The overhead lights snapped on. "Mr. Ward," Ava's voice said from behind him, "would you like to tell me why you're going through my private files after hours?" Daniel froze, the file half pulled from the briefcase. "I was just—" The lie shriveled. "Dusting." Ava stepped closer, heels sharp on the floor. "Dusting inside my briefcase?" Her gaze went from the open folder to the frame in his hand. "Put that down." He set the photo on the desk, fingers shaking. "I recognize that place," he said before he could stop himself. "Meadow Ridge Children's Center." Ava's expression barely moved, but something in her eyes tightened. "You're out of line, Mr. Ward." "I lived there," Daniel said, "until I was 14. That's irrelevant." She closed the briefcase with a snap. "You've just violated company policy." "I'm sorry. It's just that girl in the photo. I knew her." The words tumbled out. Her name was Rosie. Little scar on her chin from the jungle gym. She used to talk about having a glass office one day so nobody could boss her around. For a heartbeat, Ava's face went pale. "What did you call her?" she asked. "Rosie," he said. "Rosie Lane." Silence stretched. Then Ava's voice cooled. "I don't know what game you're playing," she said, "but going through my files and personal items is grounds for termination. As of now, you're suspended. HR will be in touch." "Miss Kensington, I'm not trying to—" "Leave your badge with security," she cut in. "If you don't, they'll take it." He nodded. "Yes, ma'am." He pushed his card out, legs unsteady. In the elevator, his reflection looked like a stranger, eyes wide, jaw clenched. By the time he reached the lobby, the badge felt like it weighed a pound. Outside, the air bit through his jacket as he walked home. Mia was asleep on the couch when he got in, school papers everywhere. He eased a blanket over her and sank into the armchair. His phone buzzed once. Email from HR, investigation notice. He stared at the ceiling until gray light seeped in. When Mia shuffled out, he pasted on a smile. "Are you not going to work?" she asked. "Day off," he lied. "Chef's special breakfast today." "Pancakes?" Her eyes lit up. "You got it." While she stirred batter, the TV murmured in the background. Daniel barely listened until the anchor said a word that made his skin prickle. Meadow Ridge. He turned. On the screen, Ava stood before microphones. Logo wall behind her. "Kensington Tech is proud to move forward with the Meadow Ridge redevelopment," she said. Drone footage showed the sagging group home, the cracked basketball court. "We're transforming a neglected property into something our city can be proud of." Text crawled along the bottom. "Site to be cleared after acquisition closes Friday." "They're tearing it down," Daniel whispered. Mia tugged his sleeve. "Dad?" He blinked, forcing himself back to the kitchen. "Sorry, Bug. Flip that one before it burns." He walked her to school, each step heavy. He should be hunting for another job, calling landlords. Instead, the image of bulldozers chewing through cracked pavement wouldn't leave his mind. Meadow Ridge had been harsh, but it was home for kids who had nowhere else. After he dropped Mio off, he wandered, not ready to face the apartment. Without really deciding to, he ended up across the street from Kensington Tech, watching workers stream through the glass doors. "You're suspended," he reminded himself. But if he stayed silent, Meadow Ridge would vanish, and with it the last trace of the girl he'd promised to protect. An SUV pulled up to the curb in front of him. The rear door opened. "Daniel Ward?" a voice called. He turned. Two company security officers stepped out, badges catching the light. His chest tightened. "If this is about last night, Ms. Kensington requested you come upstairs," one of them said. "Immediately." Daniel stared. "Requested? I don't even work here right now." "Sir," the other guard said, gesturing to the open ISU door. "She told us to bring you to the boardroom." The elevator ride felt endless. Daniel walked between the two guards until they stopped at doors he'd only ever cleaned from the outside. Inside, a long table faced the windows. At the head, Ava Kensington stood, arms folded. "Mr. Ward," she said. "Sit." He took the empty chair, aware of his worn clothes. "Last night, this employee accessed my private files," she told the room. "He also claimed he knew the child in this photo." She lifted the frame. The two kids on the swing stared out. "Mr. Ward," she said, "repeat what you told me." "The picture was taken at Meadow Ridge Children's Center," Daniel said. "I grew up there. The girl's name was Rosie. Rosalind Lane. We were in the same unit." "For the record," Ava said, "my birth name was Rosalind Lane. I confirmed this morning that the center's files list a Daniel Ward admitted the same day I was." Daniel swallowed. "So, it really is you?" She didn't answer him directly. "When I left Meadow Ridge, I decided never to look back," she told the board. "I changed my name and built a new life." She tapped a remote. The screen lit with an aerial shot of Meadow Ridge. "This is the property we're buying," she said. "Current plan. Apartments here, campus here." "Last night, Mr. Ward reminded me Meadow Ridge isn't just property," she continued. "It's the only home some kids ever had." She clicked again. The blocks on the screen shifted. A broad middle section turned green. "This is the revised plan I submitted this morning," she said. "Smaller apartments, smaller campus. And in the center, a youth center and transitional housing built on the old footprint. Same name, new purpose." She set the remote down and finally looked straight at Daniel. "You asked why I keep that photo," she said. "It reminds me where I started. Somewhere along the way, I pretended it was just decoration." He managed a weak smile. "I wasn't trying to threaten you. I just didn't want Meadow Ridge erased." "I know," she said. "Security pulled your file and the cameras. You fix equipment on your own time. You buy coffee for the night staff. You're not great at following rules, but you are good at showing up." Ava slid a folder across the table. "Inside is an offer," she said. "Community Partnerships Coordinator for the Meadow Ridge Project. Full salary, health insurance, and a voice in these meetings whenever that place is on the agenda." Daniel opened it. The numbers made his head swim. "You want me to work with you?" "I want you to work for the kids," she said. "I'll handle investors. You tell us what actually matters on the ground." He let out a shaky laugh. "You suspended me last night." "Consider this an aggressive form of unsuspending," she said. "One condition," Ava added. "When the center opens, you bring your daughter. Mia, right? She should see a place built for more than just surviving." His eyes burned. "She'd like that," he said. The rest of the meeting blurred. Daniel kept seeing that green square on the screen. When it ended, the board filtered out. Ava stayed by the window. Daniel walked over, letters still in his hand. "So," he said quietly. "Rosie?" She exhaled, almost laughing. "No one's called me that in decades." "I'm sorry I never came back," he said. "I meant it when I said I would." "You got older," she said. "So did I. Maybe this is how we keep the promise instead." Weeks later, sunlight fell on a fresh sign. Meadow Community Center. Kids raced across a safe courtyard. Mia ran with them, curls flying, squealing as water from a new fountain sprayed her sneakers. Daniel stood near the entrance beside Ava, watching his daughters spin in the open space. The place where his story had broken now held laughter and a future he hadn't dared imagine. The lunch rush at Harrow and Finch Cafe roars like a train. Plates clatter, milk steam hisses, orders fly. When Grace Miller spots a little girl by the pastry case with hands fluttering like frightened birds. Grace recognizes the shapes. Sign language, halting and urgent. Milk. Where's Dad? Scared. She slips from the till, kneels, and signs back. "It's okay. I'll help." The girl exhales, shoulders loosening. A man in a slate suit whirls at the door, eyes scanning. Grace guides the child toward him. Just as her manager storms in, clipboard clamped to his chest. "Staff stay at stations," he snaps. "You're done. Clean out your locker." The child's face collapses. The suited man, Marcus Hale, the hotel magnate, goes quiet, watching what kind of world this is. Grace folds her apron with burning cheeks and steps into the cold. A black car ghosts to the curb. The rear door opens. The millionaire looks at her like a decision already made and says, "Come with me." Grace does, straight into a room that can end her luck or change her life. Before we start, tell us in the comments, where are you watching from? Grace moves fast and keeps her head down. Tips pay rent. Eye contact with management invites lectures. But the child's shaking hands tear right through those rules. She recognizes the signs: milk, Dad, scared. Muscle memory from years translating for her cousin Noah. She steps from the till, kneels by the pastry case, and signs, "It's okay. I'll help." A man in a slate suit turns at the door. The girl runs to him as Grace guides her across the floor. Relief warms his face. Her manager, Craig, arrives first. "Staff stay at stations," he snaps, clipboard hugged like a badge. "You've been warned." "She was lost," Grace says. "I signed so she could find her dad." The suited man reaches them, breathing the child's name, Poppy, into her hat. He's mid-40s, silver at the temples. Grace knows the face from magazines. Marcus Hale. Poppy points at Grace and signs "Helped me, kind." Craig clears his throat. "You left your post. Clean out your locker." "Today?" Poppy's mouth opens in a small, horrified O. She signs no. Grace keeps her voice even. "It was 30 seconds. "And you're done," Craig says, already satisfied. "Payroll will remove your shifts." Silence settles beneath the hiss of the espresso wand. Grace signs sorry to Poppy. Poppy signs thank you with trembling hands. Marcus studies Craig. Is there really no discretion here? "I'm running a business," Craig says, chin tilted toward Marcus's watch. "We can't reward insubordination. Beg or leave standing up. Pride is free, London isn't." Grace unties her apron, folds it once, and walks out into knife-cold January. Her phone vibrates. The bank app's numbers are neat and merciless. 2 weeks to rent. She leans against the brick, swallowing the sting, when footsteps stop. "Grace?" Marcus says, as if they've met. Up close, his suit looks soft enough to sleep in. Poppy peeks from behind him, cheeks blotchy from crying. "I'm okay," Grace lies. "You shouldn't have to be," he says. To Poppy, he signs thank you to her. Poppy beams. To Grace, "You sign well." "My cousin is deaf," she says. "I try to keep up." He nods, thoughtful. Behind the glass, Craig is performing the story to two supervisors. Marcus glances once, then back. "Do you need a ride?" "The tube is fine." "It's not," he says quietly. "Come with me." There's no flirt in it, no theater. It feels like a door opening from a burning room. Grace nods. Poppy signs please, small and solemn. A black car idles at the curb. The driver opens the door as if this is inevitable. Inside, leather smells like cedar. City noise softens. Poppy slides in first, then Marcus, then Grace with her locker bag. "You lost your job for helping my daughter," Marcus says. "I'll find another, I always do." I'd like to make that easier. Hale Group runs hotels. We're expanding an accessibility program for guests and staff. We need someone who can bridge silence and service. Someone who signs. It wouldn't be charity. It would be work. Grace's pulse stutters. The car turns toward Hale Tower's glass ribs. "Where are we going?" she asks. "To see if your former manager just fired the person I've been trying to hire," Marcus says, silencing a buzzing phone. The car slips beneath a steel canopy. Security nods them through. An assistant meets them. "Mr. Hale, the boardroom is ready." Boardroom. The word skids through Grace. Marcus gestures toward the elevators. "Walk with me." She steps in. The doors close on her reflection. Messy bun, red eyes, apron strings still in her pocket. On 41, a table stretches like a runway. A folder waits at the head chair, her name printed on the tab as if someone knew she'd arrive. Grace reaches, fingertips grazing the paper. Her stomach flips hard. Breathe. The boardroom door swings open behind her. For a heartbeat, she expects a lawyer. Craig from the cafe walks in. Craig stops at the sight of Marcus and Poppy at the head of the table, as if he's crashed the wrong meeting. "Mr. Hale," he manages. "I didn't realize." "You didn't," Marcus says. "Grace, this is Priya Shah, Operations Counsel." Priya's smile is brief and kind. "And this is a draft." Grace opens the folder. Accessibility Liaison, Hale Group Hotels. Pay that feels like air after drowning. A start date blank. Craig rallies. "There's been a misunderstanding. The employee abandoned her station. We have standards." Priya taps a key. Cafe CCTV fills a screen. Grace kneeling to sign. Poppy's small daddy. Craig bearing down. Marcus keeps his tone mild. "Our company code applies to tenants in our buildings. Care before control." Craig blinks. "I wasn't aware." "That much was clear," Marcus says. His gaze shifts to Grace. "You acted with care." "I left my till," she says. "To prevent harm," Priya replies. "That's exactly the point." Craig snorts. "You're rewarding chaos." "Chaos," Marcus says, "is a child alone while adults quote manuals." Silence. Poppy's hand finds Grace's. Grace squeezes back. Marcus closes the laptop. "We're launching Quiet Welcome. Visual menus, staff who sign, vibrating alerts. We need someone who can teach it with kindness. Will you pilot it?" Grace stares at the neat lines. A week ago, she was counting oat milk cartons. Craig tries one more angle. She's unvetted and under obligation to her current employer. "I am not," Grace says. "You fired me." "Pending review," he hedges. "Apologize and—" "We're past that," Marcus says. "Security?" A guard appears. "Escort Mr. Davies to the lobby. Accounts will contact head office about compliance training." Craig reddens but goes. The door soft closes. Grace lets out a held breath. Priya taps the contract. We can start with a paid 30-day pilot. Sign if it feels right. Grace looks to Marcus. Why me? You don't know me. I watched you choose a stranger over your shift, he says. You can't fake that under fluorescent lights. Grace picks up the pen. An assistant slips in with a tablet. Presser set for the quiet welcome demo. BBC London just arrived. Marcus turns to Grace. Optional. We can postpone. Grace thinks of Rent, of Noah's grin, of Poppy's hands. She signs okay. Let's try. 10 minutes later, they're in a cleared ballroom. Cameras, a backdrop reading Hail Group. Quiet welcome. Staff practicing basic signs from cue cards. A lectern waits. Poppy sits front row, swinging her feet. Marcus leans close. Stand with me. If someone asks whether this is PR, you can answer, or I will. Grace's pulse climbs. What do I say? The truth, he says. This isn't charity, it's competence. Lights rise. Marcus speaks about hospitality as listening. A reporter stands. Mr. Hale, is this reactive? Image repair after complaints? Is hiring Ms. Miller PR? Cameras angle toward Grace. Marcus gives her the choice with a look. She steps to the lectern. I was helping a frightened child. If that's PR, we need more of it. A ripple of laughter breaks tension. Another hand shoots up. Miss Miller, were you fired for helping? Do you trust this company enough to bind your future to it today? Priya slides the contract onto the lectern, pen beside it. Grace feels every lens waiting. She thinks of Craig's smirk, Poppy's shaky thank you, the years of translating for Noah in rooms that never bent. The pen is cool between her fingers. Marcus doesn't push. Grace? A reporter prompts. Will you sign? She draws a breath, opens her mouth. When a side door bangs and a woman hustles forward with a cafe apron folded over her arm and panic in her face. Please, someone called child services on Grace Miller. The woman blurts. They said she grabbed a customer's kid. They're upstairs now, asking for her. The room tilts. Poppy's fingers clamp around the chair arm. Marcus's jaw hardens. Security begins to move. Now. Grace freezes, pen hovering. Child services. The words strip heat from the room. Poppy makes a small sound. Marcus is already moving. Which floor? Mezzanine, the barista pants. They asked for Ms. Miller. Priya's eyes narrow. Malicious call. Prove it later, Marcus says. To Grace, softer. Come with me. Together. Security clears a path. On the mezzanine, 2 social workers wait, badges visible. Ms. Miller? Says the older one. I'm Ruth. We received a report that you removed a child at Harrow and Finch. Grace steadies. I guided a lost girl to her father using sign language. The manager fired me for leaving my till. Poppy steps forward, signs me. Grace gestures. This is Poppy Hale. Ruth crouches to Poppy's height. Thank you. She looks up. May we confirm the timeline? Priya summons building security. Footage rolls on a tablet. Grace kneeling, Poppy signing, Craig pointing at the door. Ruth exhales. We take false reports seriously. Was anyone hostile after this? The barista twists her apron. I overheard Craig say, let's make this difficult for her. Security checks caller logs. The number matches the cafe office. Ruth notes it. We'll file this. Miss Miller, your actions were appropriate. Poppy signs thank you. Ruth signs you're welcome back. Marcus's jaw untenses. You okay? He asks. Shaking, Grace says. Okay. They return to the ballroom. The hush now feels like attention, not judgment. Marcus faces the mics. A false report was made and addressed. We're moving forward. He nods to Grace. She steps to the lectern. I'm not a prop, she says. I'm someone who signs because my cousin needed me to. Today a child did. Hospitality means noticing the person in front of you and bending toward them. Quiet welcome is how we make that ordinary. A reporter raises a hand. Will you still sign that contract? Priya places it down. Grace thinks of Noah's proud grin, of rent, of Poppy's small thank you. She signs yes to Marcus, then writes Grace Miller in steady strokes. Applause builds, warm and sustained. Consequences arrive before the clapping fades. Harrow and Finch's head office emails an apology, announces Craig's suspension, and commits to company-wide training with Hale Group's team. The barista sends a photo. A paper placard by the till. We sign here. Grace's first assignment lands that afternoon. Train the front desk at the flagship hotel. In a bright room, she demonstrates how to get attention without touch, to keep faces in the light, to slow down when writing. She trips on a word and laughs. The team laughs with her and learns it anyway. From the doorway, Marcus and Poppy watch. When the session ends, Poppy pads over with a folded card covered in stick figures signing. On the back, welcome. Grace slips it behind her new badge. They walk into the lobby, now evening gold. Travelers wheel bags across stone. Ready? Grace asks. Poppy nods, lifting her small hands. Together they greet a guest who looks startled and then relieved. Marcus hangs back, letting the space belong to them. He catches Grace's eye, offers a nod that means colleague, not rescue. They move station to station, showing staff hello, thank you, and where is the lift? Every successful exchange lands like a small bell. Later, by the doors, Grace turns the card in her fingers. Hours ago, she was counting oat milk cartons and watching a clipboard end her wages. Now her hands are the point. Work feels like purpose, not punishment. Poppy squeezes her sleeve. Tea? She mouths. Grace signs yes. They cross the lobby toward the cafe corner as a new guest checks in using the phrases she just taught. The suitcase wheels click, the fountain murmurs. And in the soft hum, a girl who had been lost at lunchtime grins up at the woman who helped her. And the woman finally believes that kindness can be a job. For good, finally. Olivia Ward was used to ribbon cuttings, camera flashes, and polite applause. But tonight, as the town car rolled up to St. Matthew's Children's Home, something in her chest felt different. Tight, almost electric. This wasn't just another charity gala. She was wiring in the largest donation her foundation had ever made, enough to rebuild the crumbling orphanage where her file once sat in a forgotten cabinet. Stamped baby girl, no known family. Inside, reporters waited, lights glaring against peeling walls. Children lined the hall clutching handmade signs that said, "Thank you, Miss Olivia." At the back, sweeping up a trail of glitter with a tired broom, a janitor in a faded navy jumpsuit watched her like he knew her from somewhere else, somewhere older than this night. Olivia pasted on her practiced CEO smile, but her hands trembled around the gold scissors. The director stepped up to the mic. There's something you both need to hear before we cut this ribbon. Before we start, tell us in the comments. Where are you watching from? Olivia's smile didn't move, but her heart did. It dropped to her shoes. What do you mean, something we need to hear? She asked, keeping her voice light for the cameras. The director, a woman named Margaret Doyle, adjusted the mic. Most of you know Ms. Ward as an entrepreneur and philanthropist. But what you don't know is that this donation is, in a way, her coming home. A murmur rippled through the room. Olivia's fingers tightened around the scissors. Margaret turned toward her. Olivia, 34 years ago, A baby girl was left at this orphanage with no name, no family, no information. The staff called her Hope. Her file disappeared when she was adopted, and for years we thought it was gone. Last month, during renovations, we found it behind a cabinet. She lifted a worn manila folder. It belongs to you. The cameras surged closer. Olivia felt the floor tilt. I don't understand, she managed. At the back of the hall, the janitor straightened, one hand still on the broom. His name tag read Jack. He looked like he might bolt or speak or both. Margaret stepped down from the podium, folder in hand. We thought, before we celebrate your generosity, you should hear what's inside. Olivia became aware of the humming lights, the lemon cleaner on the floor, the rustle of kids. Her assistant, Grace, hovered near the edge of the crowd. Can we maybe do this privately? Grace whispered. Olivia wanted to say yes, to push the cameras back, to shove the past away. But the children were watching, holding signs that said, "Thank you, Miss Olivia." No, Olivia said, surprising herself. If this is about them, it can happen here. Margaret gave a small nod and opened the folder. The paper inside was yellowed, edges curled. Infant female, she read softly into the mic. Found wrapped in a blue hospital blanket. Approximate age, 3 weeks, birthmark on left shoulder, wristband tag, Collins, baby B. The name hit Jack like a slap. His grip slipped on the broom handle, and it clattered against the floor. Collins. Olivia's chest constricted. That's not my name, she said. But even as she spoke, her left shoulder prickled, as if the small crescent-shaped birthmark there had just been touched. Margaret continued, voice steady. Note from the nurse. Possible older sibling admitted the same night. Male, approximately 4 years old. Same wristband surname. Transferred before intake completed. After that, the record cuts off. Older sibling. Jack's heart hammered. 4 years old. A blur of white hallways, a crying baby he'd tried to reach, adults pulling him back. He hadn't imagined her. Olivia swallowed. You're saying I had a brother? Margaret looked up. We think so. The paperwork was incomplete, but the notation is there. Someone took him out before the file was finished. We never saw him again. In the back, Jack stepped forward without realizing his feet were moving. His little boy, Noah, peered out from behind his leg, confused by the sudden hush. Margaret closed the folder. There's more, Miss Ward. But it's your choice whether to hear it now. Every instinct screamed at Olivia to slow down, to retreat to an office. But she'd just pledged millions to rebuild this place, to give kids like her a chance at truth instead of secrets. She lifted her chin. Tell me. Margaret turned the last page. There's one final note from the original director, dated that night. It says, if anyone ever comes looking for her, start with the boy. He wouldn't stop saying her name. Olivia's voice barely rose above a whisper. What name? Margaret's fingers trembled as she read. He called her Livy, over and over, like he was afraid someone would forget. In the silence that followed, Jack dropped the broom and took another step forward. Livy? He said, his voice breaking, loud enough for the whole hall to hear. For a second, no one moved. The word hung in the air. Livy. Olivia's throat closed. She hadn't heard that nickname since childhood, but it still fit. Security stepped closer. Cameras tilted toward the man in the navy jumpsuit and the small boy beside him. Margaret lowered the mic. Jack, she said carefully, would you come up, please? He swallowed. I'm just the janitor, ma'am. Tonight, Olivia said, pulse racing, I don't think that's all you are. Jack's eyes met hers. Same hazel green, only more tired. He took Noah's hand and walked to the front as whispers rose along the aisle. At the podium, Margaret switched off the mic so the speakers were off, though the cameras stayed on them. "Olivia," she said softly. "Jack came to us 3 months ago, asking if we had records of a baby sister. We didn't then. When we found your file, we called a lawyer. We've been trying to confirm before telling you." Jack cleared his throat. "My wristband said Collins, baby A. They separated us in the hospital. I remember a tiny cry and a nurse saying, 'We'll take her.' They told me later I imagined it." Olivia's hands shook. "And you kept looking?" "Every time I moved foster homes. Every time I aged out. Every time I cleaned a hospital hallway." He gave a small shrug. "When this job opened at the place that might have been yours, I took it. Just in case." Margaret opened a thinner folder. "The hospital confirmed 2 infants with the Collins code admitted the same night," she said. "One discharged to an adoption agency, one transferred with an older child to a temporary home, then lost in the system. It's not legal proof, but it lines up." Olivia thought of the boardroom where people had argued over whether this orphanage made sense on a spreadsheet. None of them had mentioned brothers who mopped floors because they didn't know how to stop searching. "So what now?" she asked. Margaret glanced between them. "We scheduled a DNA test for next week. Jack, remember? We wanted to give you time." Olivia shook her head. "I don't have time for guesses anymore." She looked at Grace. "Is there a lab that can run a rush test tonight?" Grace tapped her phone. "Private clinic 2 blocks away. They owe you favors." Olivia faced Jack. "Will you come with me? If this is wrong, we'll both know. If it isn't, I won't make you find out alone." Jack's jaw worked. "I make $12 an hour," he said. "You own half the skyline. You sure you want me in your car?" "For years, you've done more for me than most people at my table," she replied. "You remembered my name." Noah tugged his sleeve. "Dad, I'm scared." Jack knelt. "Me too, buddy. But sometimes being brave means getting answers." Minutes later, Olivia's town car idled at the curb. The driver opened the door, but she waved him back and held it herself as Jack and Noah climbed in. As the door shut, flashes strobed from the sidewalk. Reporters shouted questions around them. The car pulled away. Streetlights slid over Jack, Noah, and Olivia's reflection in the glass. Her phone buzzed. A text from her lead investor. "This orphanage stunt is getting headlines. Call me." She turned the screen face down. "Whatever that is," Jack said quietly, nodding toward the phone. "You can answer it after you know the truth." Olivia let out a breath. "For the first time in my life," she said, "a contract isn't the most important document I'm about to sign." The town car turned toward the clinic. Somewhere ahead, under bright lights and a sterile swab, waited the smallest test of her life and the biggest answer. "Jack," she said, pulse pounding in her ears, "if this comes back the way I think it will, I'm not leaving you in that boiler room with a mop." The clinic smelled like antiseptic and old coffee. As Olivia's car slid under the awning, the glass doors reflected her face back at her. Inside, the receptionist glanced up, startled. "Ms. Ward, we've got you on the rush list. Exam room 3. Her eyes flicked to Jack and Noah. "Family?" Olivia's chest tightened. "We're about to find out." In the cramped room, Noah swung his feet from the paper-covered table. The tech handed over 2 swabs. "Just a quick cheek sample," he said. "We'll run it right away." Olivia let the swab scrape her cheek. Watched Jack do the same. Watched the labels go on. O. Ward, J. Collins. How long? She asked. 40 minutes. When the door shut, it was quiet. Noah crinkled the exam paper again. If she's my aunt, he asked, does that mean I finally have someone to brag about on Family Tree Day? Jack flushed. We're enough, kiddo. Olivia's throat burned. You shouldn't have had to be enough alone, she said. Not when I was out there with more than I knew what to do with. Jack shrugged. You didn't leave us. You were a baby. I just never stopped wondering if you landed somewhere soft. I landed somewhere expensive, she said. Soft is different. They traded stories while they waited, foster homes and mergers. It felt absurd that one of them had polished conference tables while the other polished linoleum. The tech finally slipped back in, holding a single sheet of paper. Well? Olivia asked, standing before she meant to. He smiled. You two share both parents. It's not even close. For a second she heard only her heartbeat. Then Jack's hand flew to his mouth, and Noah whispered, Dad. Olivia reached for Jack's other hand. His grip was rough, shaking. So, we're really, he began. Brother and sister, she finished. The hug was clumsy and too tight and perfect. Noah squeezed between them until they laughed, breathless. By morning, the story had exploded. Olivia entered the orphanage boardroom. Cameras lined the back wall. Margaret sat with 2 lawyers. Jack hovered near the door in a borrowed shirt. Noah swung his legs. Olivia took the seat in front of them. For once, it felt less like a throne. Last night, Ms. Ward confirmed that our janitor, Jack Collins, is her brother. Margaret said, She has also asked us to change how this home is run. She slid folders toward Olivia and Jack. These are foundation papers. If you sign, St. Matthew's will be run by the Ward Collins Children's Foundation. Co-chairs, Olivia Ward and Jack Collins. Questions exploded. Olivia tuned them out. On the top page, her name sat beside Jack's. Her phone buzzed again. She silenced it and pushed it aside. She turned to Jack. You've patched every leak in this building, she said. How do you feel about helping decide what gets built next? He stared at the pen. You really want me here? I don't want to do this without you. His hand shook as he signed his name. For the first time, his name wasn't on a maintenance log, but on a line that shaped futures. Olivia signed beside him, the ink drying on a different kind of contract. Months later, the courtyard was green, the windows new, the rooms full of kids in afternoon. A plaque by the gate read, Ward Collins, Home for Children. Olivia stood under the old oak. Noah shouted from the steps. Aunt Olivia, we need help with homework. Jack crossed the lawn with a box of books. You heard him, Livy, he called. Bosses don't get out of math duty. She laughed and walked toward them, kids' voices rising around her. For the first time, home didn't mean a house someone gave her or a building she funded. It meant this: her brother, her nephew, and a yard full of kids who knew someone always would. Lila Carter didn't plan to walk into a Manhattan brasserie dripping river mud. 10 minutes earlier, she'd hauled a shivering spaniel up a slick embankment, while a stranded boy begged her not to let go. Now, under velvet lights, patrons stared at the silt on her cheeks and thrift store dress. This was the blind date her roommate swore would change everything. The man at the corner table, tailored navy suit, steady eyes, rose when he saw her. Marcus Vale. She knew the name from the business pages. A quiet millionaire who rescued failing companies. He shrugged off his jacket and settled it over her shoulders like it was normal. Heat and humiliation collided. Lila's phone pinged with an overdue notice. She should run. Instead, she sat. Marcus signaled the server, unfazed by mud on linen. "Tell me what happened," he said, voice low. When she finished, he leaned in, intrigued rather than amused. "I have an idea," he added, sliding a sleek card across the table. "But it isn't dinner." Lila glanced down and froze. "Before we start, tell us in the comments, where are you watching from?" Lila's hand still shook as Marcus's jacket warmed her shoulders. Glasses chimed, jazz whispered, and she felt every eye counting the mud she'd tracked across the tile. "I'm usually not a swamp monster," she said. "Dog rescue? Long story?" "Short version?" Marcus's voice carried a clean calm. She told him, the boy on the river path, the spaniel slipping, the scramble down wet stones, the bank giving way. She left out the overdue rent and the double shift at the bakery. "Then you walked in anyway," he said. "Most would cancel." "I nearly did. My roommate bribed me with her last MetroCard." A server arrived. "Hot tea for her," Marcus said. "And a towel, please." Lila dabbed at her face, aware of his jacket over her damp dress. The card on the table gleamed. "Vale Partners." "You're that investor," she said. "The one who doesn't bulldoze staff." "I try not to waste people," he replied. "If this is a normal date, I'm failing spectacularly." "I don't do normal dates," Marcus said. "My assistant set this up because you used to run the Fulton Street Arts Co-op." "Used to," she said, the word like a bruise. Landlord pressure, broken pipes, a predatory lease. She'd held poetry nights by space heater until winter 1. "You kept it alive 6 months longer by restructuring dues," Marcus said. "I like people who hold the line when the budget says run." Heat rose. That wasn't embarrassment. "Why does that matter?" "Because I just acquired Hedidn't Row." She blinked. Hedidn't Row, historic storefronts, shuttered steel, rumors that never died. "I want it reopened as a self-sustaining arts lane," Marcus said. "No charity optics, real math. I need someone who understands tenants who aren't spreadsheets." "And you thought, find the woman who fell in a river on a Tuesday?" "I thought, find the woman who didn't cancel. I'm a temp cashier. Then you're available. Walk a Hedidn't with me tomorrow. If it fits, we draft terms. Salary, equity tied to performance, discretion to select anchor tenants. Salary, equity." Lila's chest tightened with rent, her mother's bill, the co-op's ghost. "Why me?" "Because you keep showing up." She touched the jacket, absurdly soft. The boy's thank you echoed. The idea of Hedidn't breathing again tugged hard. "Tomorrow," she heard herself say. Relief, real, not triumphant, passed through his eyes. "Car at 8, warm, on time, with coffee." Her laugh startled her. For the first time in weeks, her lungs unclenched. A voice cut in. "Marcus Vale," said a woman in a red blazer, lifting her phone. "Is this your new charity case?" Heads turned. The flash popped. The jacket felt suddenly theatrical. "Delete that," Marcus said, iron in his tone. "Public place," the woman sang. "And I've been dying to know who you're courting for Hedidn't Row." Lila's stomach dipped. "How does she?" "Because I'm the person trying to take it from him," the woman said, pocketing the phone. "See you both in tomorrow's news." She walked out, heels bright against tile. "Who was that?" Lila asked. "Victoria Crane," Marcus said. "She wants the row for luxury condos." "Can she actually take it?" "She can try. She likes spectacle." "So what happens tomorrow?" Lila asked. "We start before spectacle," Marcus said. "You'll need boots." "Not heels?" "Only if you plan to fence with lawyers and stilettos." Her phone buzzed. A rent reminder, blunt as a knock. She silenced it quietly. Then a new alert. A gossip site already posting the photo. Marcus Vale's mystery date. Muddy girlfriend or new project? The room tilted. Tables whispered. A couple angled their phones. "Walk with me," Marcus said, standing. "To where?" He nodded toward the door and the waiting cameras beyond the glass. The car arrived at 7:59, black paint drinking the morning light. Lila nearly texted to cancel, then climbed in. The coffee tasted exactly right. Marcus was already inside Hedidn't Row, a corridor of shuttered fronts, cracked mosaic, dust like old books. "You're earlier than the car," he said. "The bus beat traffic," she answered, pulling on a hard hat he offered. They stepped through a former print shop with tin ceiling and battered presses like sleeping beasts. Lila touched a roller and saw strings of lights. Late hours, a kiln in back, people learning to breathe again. "Who belongs here?" Marcus asked. "Anchor Cafe to pay bills without killing the soul," she said, pointing. "Community darkroom, 2 micro studios that rotate monthly, predictable rent, percentage over a threshold. Night markets." He watched her build the place in air. For an hour, she forgot the gossip headline. Then a security team turned the corner. Behind them, Victoria Crane stepped from a black SUV like a verdict. "Good morning," she said. "Public footpath, yes?" "I brought a proposal." An assistant produced a folder. 50% above your purchase. You profit. I deliver tasteful homes." "Windowed gyms aren't homes," Lila said. Victoria's smile held. "And you are?" "Someone who kept a place alive on pennies." "Charming. Marcus, your partners will force a sale when they see my numbers." "I have partners," he said evenly. "They back returns, not headlines." "We'll tour now," Victoria told her security lead. "You won't," Marcus said. "I don't grant access to competitors mid-assessment." "Your optics are already messy." She tipped her head at Lila. Cute narrative, though. Heat rose in Lila's face. She turned to Marcus. "Let's build a better one. Open shutters at noon with a pop-up. Invite old co-op vendors. Cameras will see community, not your supposed girlfriend. Make the row feel inevitable." Marcus nodded. "Do it." "Today?" Lila asked. "Today. 4 hours." Victoria laughed. "Wonderful. A flea market under rusted tin. Wear the jacket. It tests well." "Touch me, and you'll need new sunglasses," Lila said, stepping back. Marcus's mouth tipped. "You heard my director," he told Victoria. "Director?" Victoria's eyes cooled. "Interim," he said. "Effective now." The word landed in Lila like a key turning. She moved. Calls flew. She borrowed extension cords and tables from the bakery. A barista friend promised a cart. Former co-op makers arrived with crates, easels, hope. By 11:50, the row breathed. At noon, a line formed, cameras with it. Marcus stood a half step behind Lila. She raised the first shutter. Metal groaned awake. Inside, hand-thrown mugs, small prints, postcards. A guitar began to play. Victoria returned with another SUV and a professional smile. She angled toward a reporter. "A word on adaptive reuse?" Lila reached the mic first. "Today proves this block can pay its way without pricing out the people who make it worth visiting," she said. "We'll publish numbers by week's end. If they don't add up, you'll hear that too." "Are you Marcus Vale's girlfriend?" a reporter asked. "No," Lila said. "I'm his problem solver." Applause and laughter rippled. The security lead handed Marcus a phone. His expression sharpened. "What is it?" Lila asked. He showed her. An emergency injunction hearing in 2 hours, filed by Victoria's firm to halt all Hedidn't activity for public safety. "Wouldn't want anyone hurt," Victoria said sweetly. Music faltered. Cameras leaned in. Lila looked at the crowd she'd summoned. "We fight," Marcus said. "How?" "By proving open is safer than closed," he said, "and by making one call." "To whom?" "The city's building commissioner." Sirens grew, not police. A fire inspection van turned into the block. Victoria smiled like a cat. Crowd held its breath. Lila squared her shoulders. Tick-tock. The fire inspector stepped from the van, navy jacket stamped with the city seal. 2 officials and a woman with a tablet followed. "Mr. Vale," the inspector said. "Commissioner Malik sends his regards." Cameras edged closer. Lila felt the row hold still. "We've had a complaint about unsafe operations," the inspector said. "If your pop-up is a hazard, we'll shut it." Lila forced steadiness. "We taped tripping risks, capped dead outlets, mapped exits, extinguishers every 20 feet, occupancy posted, no open flame, first aid kit at check-in." The woman with the tablet walked with her, checking cords, aisles, doors. At the end, the inspector nodded. "Better than most street fairs," he said. Victoria's sunglasses lifted a fraction. "And yet, there's an injunction at 2, she purred. "It hears," the inspector said. "The court requested the city's position." "How did the commissioner become interested?" Victoria asked. A small voice answered from the crowd. "Because of me." The boy Lila had hauled from the river clutched his mother's hand. The spaniel wore a tiny life vest. "She saved him," the mother said, pulling Lila into a teary hug. "Commissioner Malik is my brother." Cameras swung. Victoria's smile held, thinner. Touching. Business is business. "Then business," Marcus said. "Vale Partners will not flip Hedidn't Row to luxury condos. Today we sign a binding governance change." His attorney opened a folder. Marcus continued. "Hedidn't Row becomes a community benefit LLC. Revenues matter. So do rules. Disposition requires approval from a 3-seat board. Investors, the city's cultural office, and the managing director." He looked to Lila. "If she accepts." Words left her. "Me?" "You've been managing since 8, he said. "Now with authority." Victoria laughed. "You're giving away control to optics." "I'm investing in durability," Marcus replied. "Quarterly numbers will be public. If this can't wash its face, we pivot within the charter." Lila found her voice. "Fair leases," she said. "Caps on increases, percentage rent after break-even, transparent books." "Add it," Marcus told the attorney. The inspector's radio crackled. "Judge wants the city's view," someone said over static. He listened, then looked up. "Filed, compliant, beneficial. We recommend denying the injunction." Victoria blinked. "You won't carry this block on sentiment." "On footfall," Marcus said. Lila mirrored a quick dashboard onto a borrowed monitor. Door clicks, dwell estimates, vendor sales. Even cautious, the IEA numbers outpaced her old co-op's best market. "Who designed this?" a reporter asked. "Lila," Marcus answered. "On lunch breaks." He signed the document, then offered the pen. Her name fit the line as if it had been waiting. Applause rose, not loud, steady. The row seemed to exhale. Victoria slid on her sunglasses. "Enjoy your math," she said, and retreated to her SUV. No one followed. Afternoon softened to gold. The shutters were up, the guitar soft, the coffee sweet. Marcus's jacket, now dry, still rested on Lila's shoulders. "You should keep that," he said. She returned it. "I brought my own today." He glanced at her scuffed boots and smiled. "What's first, managing director?" Lila looked down the block she now partly owned. "Names, then a calendar. Then we keep showing up." The boy fed the spaniel a biscuit under the first table. The lanterns blinked on. Lila stood in the spill of warm light, listening to a place take its first steady breath. And finally, let herself breathe with it.
It started with a phone ringing that morning, sharp, persistent, and echoing through the quiet apartment like it refused to be ignored. Aidan Brooks, a 39-year-old single father and part-time mechanic, almost didn't answer. He was running late, his hands still greasy from the old Honda he'd been fixing, his mind already racing through how to stretch his last $50 for the week. His daughter Ava, only 7, was in the next room humming to herself, cutting paper hearts for a school project. The phone rang again, unknown. Number, he sighed, wiped his hands on his jeans, and picked up that one call, meant for someone else, would change everything he thought he knew about struggle, about kindness, and about the strange, fragile ways people's lives can collide if you believe in kindness, second chances, and the power of unexpected miracles. Make sure to like, comment, share, and subscribe to Touch of Kindness, where real stories of the heart come alive every day. When Aidan answered, a soft, trembling voice came through the line. Harper, is that you please tell? Me, you're still coming to the Willowfield fundraiser today. We really need to talk before the press arrives. He frowned. I think you've got the wrong number, he said quietly, about to hang up. But then he heard her exhale shakily, like she'd been crying. Oh, I'm sorry, she murmured. I really needed to talk to someone. My father passed last month, and I keep calling his assistant by mistake. I guess her tone cracked halfway through. Aidan paused. Something in her voice, lonely, broken, raw, made him hesitate. He could have hung up, but instead he said softly, Hey, it's all right, you don't have to apologize. Sounds like you've had a rough morning. That's how it began. A wrong number, 2 strangers who should never have spoken, but for the next few minutes she kept talking. She introduced herself as Evelyn Hartwell, the only daughter of one of the most well-known industrial magnates in the city. She said the world saw her as the heiress to the Hartwell fortune, but she'd never felt more lost, more alone. She was due to attend a massive charity gala that afternoon, her father's legacy event, but she didn't want to go. Everyone there will expect me to smile, she said bitterly. They'll toast him for his business, not the man he was. Aidan listened quietly, sitting on the edge of his worn sofa, the faint sound of Ava's laughter filling the background. He wasn't anyone special, not compared to her, just a dad trying to make ends meet. But in that moment he felt her pain, because grief was something he knew too well. He told her about his wife, Marissa, how she'd died 3 years ago in a car accident, how he'd learned to make pancakes, one-handed while holding a baby in the other. How nights were the hardest. When the apartment felt too quiet, Evelyn didn't hang up. She listened, and for some strange reason, she said it made her feel less alone. Before they ended the call, she whispered, Thank you, whoever you are, you made today a little easier. Then she hung up. Aidan sat there staring at his phone. He didn't even know why he cared so much about a woman he'd never met, but something in her voice stayed with him all day. By noon, he'd fixed 2 cars, picked Ava up from school, and tried not to think about the stranger who'd bared her heart to him. But life had other plans. When he stopped by the local grocery store, he saw a crowd near the entrance. Flashing cameras, black cars, and at the center, he froze. It was her, Evelyn Hartwell. She was even more striking in person, a young woman in her late 20s, wearing a pale blue dress that shimmered under the sun, but her eyes looked tired. He hesitated, watching as she brushed off a reporter's question and ducked inside. Ava tugged his sleeve. Daddy, she dropped something. Aidan looked down. There on the ground was a small silver bracelet, engraved with "For Dad." Always. He picked it up. Heart thudding. Maybe fate was giving him an excuse. He followed her inside the store, nerves kicking in when she turned down the flower aisle. He finally spoke. Miss Hartwell. She looked startled, then guarded. Do I know you? He held up the bracelet. You dropped this? Her expression softened, a polished heiress mask slipping just a little. Oh, thank you. That means a lot. She hesitated, studying his face. Wait, you sound familiar. Are you the man from the call this morning? Aidan smiled awkwardly. Guilty, she blinked, then let out a small, incredulous laugh. What are the odds? They ended up talking again, right there between shelves of roses and lilies. She said she was dreading the fundraiser that afternoon, that she didn't know how to stand in front of people pretending to have it all together. Aidan told her that maybe she didn't need to pretend people remember. Hearts, not perfect speeches, he said simply, and maybe that's what she needed to hear, because she looked at him like she hadn't been truly seen in a long time. Before leaving, she asked if he'd come to the gala. He laughed it off. But she was serious, please, she said softly. I don't want to face it alone. By evening, Aidan found himself doing something completely out of character. He ironed the only suit he owned, a hand-me-down from his brother's wedding, and borrowed a small clip-on tie from a neighbor. Ava twirled in her little pink dress beside him. Excited, we're going somewhere. Fancy, Daddy? He smiled. Just for a little while, sweetheart. When they arrived at the Hartwell estate, it was like stepping into another world. Golden chandeliers, marble floors, and people in glittering gowns. Aidan felt painfully out of place, but then he saw Evelyn across the room, her expression lighting up the second she spotted him. She introduced him as a friend to the startled guests and led him to a quiet balcony overlooking the city there. Away from the cameras, she admitted the truth. Her father had built an empire but neglected the people he loved most. He'd been gone more in her childhood than home. I spent years waiting for him to notice me, she said quietly. Now he's gone, and I don't know who I am without being his daughter. Aidan listened, his eyes soft. You're still someone worth knowing, he said, someone who's more than a last name. His words struck something deep in her. Then something unexpected happened during her speech. Evelyn froze halfway through. Her voice trembled, her hands shook. The room went silent. She looked like she might break. Aidan stepped closer, giving her the smallest nod, just enough to remind her she wasn't alone. She took a breath, steadied herself, and spoke from her heart. She talked about love, regret, forgiveness, about how sometimes strangers show up when you least expect them, reminding you that even in loss, kindness survives. The audience was silent when she finished, then rose in applause. Afterward, she found Aidan and Ava sitting by the fountain outside. You were right, she said, smiling through tears. People remember hearts. Aidan smiled. Guess that's something your father never forgot to teach you. After all, what followed wasn't a fairy tale, but something real, something healing. Evelyn started volunteering at the community auto shop, where Aidan worked weekends. She said she wanted to learn real things. Aidan taught her how to change oil, replace filters, and laugh at life's small messes. Ava adored her, calling her Miss Evie, and slowly Aidan noticed that Evelyn stopped wearing that heavy sadness in her eyes. She'd begun to find purpose again, not in wealth but in connection. One afternoon, while Aidan was packing up tools, Evelyn appeared holding 2 mugs of coffee. Do you ever think, she said softly, that maybe wrong numbers aren't really wrong? He looked up, grinning. Maybe they're just right calls at the right time. She smiled, her eyes glistening. You answered mine when no one else would. He didn't know what to say, but she reached for his hand, and that said enough. Months later, as spring sunlight filled the garage, Evelyn organized a small fundraiser for single parents in the city, under the new Hartwell Hearts Foundation. She insisted on giving Aidan the first honorary award for reminding me, she said before the crowd, that kindness can come from the most ordinary places, and that sometimes the people who fix our cars end up fixing our hearts. The applause that followed wasn't just for her speech, it was for what they'd both become through it all. If this story touched your heart, please take a moment to like, comment, and subscribe to Touch of Kindness, because somewhere out there, a small act of compassion might just change a life. And before you go, share in the comments. Have you ever had a stranger show up in your life at exactly the right time? Because sometimes the most beautiful stories begin with a simple accidental hello.